All right. All right. I guess we'll get started then. 301. So welcome everyone to Revit Handrails and Guardrails. I'm going to show you how to create these in Revit right before your 3-day weekend. So we'll get this going. Just keep in mind what I'm going to show you is mainly for guardrails and handrails that are rectangular. This won't cover like ones that go upstairs or kind of like go down, in elevation. So that's a little more advanced, so we probably have to take that for another time. But this is strictly for ones, that go, straight across that are not, they're still rectangular. All right. So what we're going to cover today, you guys can see the PowerPoint, right?
Yep.
All right, perfect. All right, what we're going to go over today is how to load a typical handrail into your project, how to create a handrail in the project by making a new wall type. I'll show you how to toggle the different options, and then we can even go into how to modify the handrail if there's a project-specific case. I'll show you that once we get into it. And then we'll have some question and answer at the end. Feel free to stop me anytime if you want me to show you something or just kind of go a little slower. We can do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up Revit. Again, if you want to follow along, be my guest. You can open up Revit. I have Revit 2018 open. I'm going to show you how to first create the wall and then load in the curtain wall, or sorry, the handrail and guardrail. I'm saying curtain wall because they're actually created as a curtain wall family. So what I'm doing is I go to Revit, I go to level 1, and I'm going to create a wall. So this is going to define the length of the guardrail or handrail. I'm going to go to wall, and in here it says WW curtain wall RO. We want to actually duplicate this. We want to make a new type. That's what I meant in the PowerPoint. We want to make a new wall type so that we can kind of easily select them later on. So I go here, edit type. You can see I have, this is my properties for this. I want to duplicate. And you can call this WW handrail, whatever you want to call it. Handrail. Just hit OK. We just want to make sure we have that new type. You can see that it came into the list now. And then you don't have to really define anything. It's more of just a way for us to select it later on. And then down here in the properties, is WW glass. Make sure that's good to go. That way it gets picked up. Hit OK. And now you can see I have a WW handrail. So you can either go ahead and start placing, pick your 2 points, or you can set the height of it first. I like to pick the points and then I can adjust it later, but it depends on your preference. So say I want to build a handrail here. I can click on my first starting point. And you remember to go clockwise. So I'm going to start on the right side, go over to the left. Say this is 20 feet. Just double click there again and just hit escape twice. So there is my handrail, where it's going to be placed. So if I go to my 3D view, you can see I didn't change the properties of the wall, so it's still going to 20 feet. This handrail is going to be, let's say, 3 feet 6 inches. You can put that in there, and it's going to get smaller. So that's your basic, outline of where your handrail is going to be. All right, pretty good so far? Good, good. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to load in a handrail. So we've actually created one that's located on the server. Again, it's pretty typical. We can use it. And again, if we need to make any changes to it, we can. I'm going to show you where to load it in from. So if you go to Insert, you go to Load Family. And if you go to the server, so I'm going to go to My Computer, ACAD, and Revit. Here's where I can go to it's under the first one, _ WW current panel library. And we call it this folder O2 miscellaneous as curtain panel. because we actually made this family as a curtain panel. So you can see there's a handrail right there. So a little preview, you can see what it's going to look like. So like I mentioned again, we're using the curtain wall feature in Revit. We made a family that's a curtain panel, but we're using it as a handrail. Okay. So once you click on that, hit open. It's going to load in. And now that it's in your project, you can go ahead and start using that in place of your glass here. So I paired the wall. I would just tab in, select that glass, and change the type of so you can see it says handrail, and choose which one you want. Flat cap, no cap, or round cap. Let's just go with round cap for now, and then you can see that it goes in there. All right. Any questions? Good. Am I going too fast? All right. So because we created this as a curtain wall, it's kind of easy, kind of like how we're making our curtain walls in operations and in sales. You can just add curtain grids to break them up. So say you had some joints in here, 5 feet. You can go every 5 feet or whatever spacing you want, and there's your joint. So pretty easy to do. Use your curtain wall feature or curtain grid. You don't want a joint, you can come in here, tab to get the curtain grid, and just delete it, and it goes away. Pretty easy to manipulate. Okay. If for some reason this needs to go a little higher, you can always just change the height of the curtain wall, and then the glass gets bigger. Let's just keep it at 3.6. And then as you'll notice that it comes in with a base shoe, a glass, and then a top cap. So a couple of options you can do to change the handrail is you can click on it, or you can click on all of them or multiple, and you can change what the top cap is. So there's no cap, you can see there's nothing, or there's a flat cap. So say you have a little flat cap at the top, which I've seen before. You can toggle between those two options, or those three options. All right. Say you need to define the glass type. So say you're making elevation, and I want all of them to have the same glass type. I can say, select all. Oops. There's a flat cap. Okay. And say select all these, or you can just select them. And then I can change the glass type here. So right now it says Vision Glass. I can click on those three little dots, and I can say it's going to be, glass type, 1T. Hit OK, and I can see it change the color. So now if I were to put this on the elevation, it would tag as a 1T. All right. Any questions? Everyone good? All right. So let me go to, let me show you some options. So let's actually go into this family. So say you needed to change something, right? Say I wanted this cap to be a little bigger. An example of that would be on Brokaw. So on Brokaw, they had this giant cap here. It was a 3-inch radius. And they had this little cover here, or whatever this is, that goes onto the guardrail. I say I needed to add that. What you can do is, once you have this in your project, you can just say, edit family at the top once you've clicked on it. And you're actually in the family editor. And I can go to my left side, and you can see what this looks like. So one thing to note is, remember when I drew the wall, wherever my draw might take my 2 points, that's where the glass is going to be. So right now I'm defining that line to be at the back of the glass. So what I mean by that is, if I go to my, back to my project, and let me take a little detail cut here so you guys can see. So if I hover over this, you can see the face of this wall is at the back of that glass. So say I wanted it to be, you know, at the front of the glass or at the front of the shoe, you have the ability to manipulate where that is depending on where you want it to go. So say I wanted to, you know, move this to actually be at this side of the glass. I can just select everything, move it over, you can see everything shifts. So now if I load this into the project, override the existing image parameter values, you can see that it's shifted. Where did my detail go? So now my face of the glass is here, or face of the wall is here. So just kind of a little understanding of, you know, the family, what that line means. So in the family, this reference plane here defines kind of where the wall is, or where the curtain panel is relative to the wall. Okay, and a little bit more about the family itself. As you notice that there are different options. This is the flat cap, this is the round cap. This is actually kind of a nested family. So you have the option to select either or. And say you needed to modify this, you would have to go into this family. So I can say edit this family. And you can see that this is kind of its own family that was nested into the curtain panel, into the handrail. And then I can modify this one. I can edit this extrusion. I want this to be 3 inches. See how big it gets. See how giant it is. And I can load that back into the handrail. Override it. You see how giant it gets. And then I can load this into the project. And you see it gets huge. So again, like if you need to manipulate it for your project, you would have to go into the family itself and then change it based on what you need. You can get rid of things. If you don't need the flat cap, you can go ahead and delete it, delete the type, and do kind of whatever you need to do. One thing to note also is when I look at the project, you can see that there's a little gap here. I'm not sure if that's totally true. I don't know if we did leave an 1/8 inch gap here or something between the base shoes, but that's how the family was made. Say for instance, you didn't want that gap. Say you wanted it to be flush. You would just have to manipulate it in the family. So if I go to my floor plan view, you can see that where the curtain grid would be is this, where it says mod width. It would be all the way to this reference plane here. For some reason, there's an 1/8 inch gap. It goes to there. That's where the base shoe stops at. So say, for example, I wanted my base shoe to go all the way to the end. I can delete that reference plane, drag this over, and lock it to that. Same thing on this side. If I don't want that 1/8 inch gap at the base shoe, I can drag it over, lock it. And now, if I load it into the project, override, now you can see there's no gap. So it's kind of how, you know, what you want it to look like. You know, you can manipulate it pretty easily in the project, or in the family, sorry, and then just reload it into the project. You can control the gap size. That's another option in the family. Right now, I believe it should be kind of a left and right option, but this actually sets both sides. So if it's a 1/2 inch gap, or say I change this like a 1 inch gap, you can see that it makes these sides bigger. So say if I do like a 6 inch gap, just to exaggerate it, you can see that it's making this bigger. You can see the base shoe is still going to where the grid line is, but just the cap and the glass is extending over. So let me ask you guys this: have you ever seen a case where, you know, what's the gap size between this? Is it typically like 1/2 inch?
Yeah, it's typically 1/2 inch, but on Santana West, we're going to make it 1 inch, just
1 inch?
because we have taller pieces, and then engineers concerned about fingers getting pinched.
Mm. So will the cap run over, right?
We don't know what's happening at the top edge of Santana
Okay.
West garage.
Okay.
But typically the cap runs through. Same with the shoe.
Yeah. So in that case, you could do, if you go to your handrail, you can do the same thing for the cap. So the cap right now, the way it's made, it is being driven based on a formula. So it's saying the part length. So I was able to drag this to the edge because this is kind of a extrusion created in this family, but the cap is actually an extrusion created outside the family and brought in and controlled based on the part length, as you can see here. So it's saying it's 8'5" 3/4", and that is driven by the length of the handrail, and that is actually a formula. So where is it? Length of handrail. So that right there is driving the cap. We didn't want it to be driven by that formula. You could easily click on it, unassociate it, and then just lock it in place. Oops. Like that. Unlock that there. And let's see if I load that into the project. There you go. Your cap now runs through, your base shoe runs through, but you have that gap of 1 inch that you would need for the glass. I think it should, we should have, we could probably update the family to have different, like a left and a right gap. The reason I say that is because if there's like a corner, let me go ahead and make one. Let me go ahead and make a new one. So you go to wall, make sure it's on handrail. So make your 90-degree corner. Then you set your height. Select both of these, 36. And I can select my glass. Change that to round cap. And here. So with corners, we'd have to kind of customize the family a little bit to be able to, miter and, have the glass a little setback. So that's one improvement I think we can make to that family, but that works. And then let's go back to the family, and I kind of want to modify it to look like this. I have a little cover here, a little extrusion. So how do we do that? There's kind of two ways. You could make it outside like the top rail cap, or you can make it inside the family here and like this left view and kind of lock it in place. Either way works depending on how you want it to look or behave inside the family. Let me just go ahead and make it in here. So if I go to create, extrusion, I can make a little rectangle here, another little rectangle here, And I'm just going to call this a 2-inch by, let me measure that, by 2-inch little piece. So align that one, make this 2-inch. I don't delete this dimension. So now I have my little extrusion of what it would look like. Hit the check mark, and I could lock it. So say, for example, this extrusion was always like 2 feet from the floor line. I can click on it, make it a 2 foot, and just lock it. That way, whenever if my handrail gets higher or lower, or gets bigger or smaller, then this will always be 2 feet. If for whatever reason it needs to move, you can make it parametric. So you would just, create the dimension, and instead of locking it, you can just make a new one. So I can say extrusion height or something. I can make an instance, so I can change it wherever I would need to. Let's test it out. Let's change this to like 2.6. You can see that it goes up. If I load that into the project, override the existing parameters, and then it went in. But I didn't do one thing. I didn't constrain it. So I only made a little piece here. Let me actually go back to this and go to my reference plane. See, I only made it a small little piece here. Let me drag it all the way to the reference plane so it knows how big it should be. Lock that, load it into the project. There you go. Again, you have to fix the corners a little bit to make it miter, but that's how you can easily add it. Get a straight wall like this. That should look something like this. And again, if you need to move it, you can click on one or click on all of them and change your parameter that you just set to 6. You can see this one moves up, while these ones are still at the 2 feet mark. All right. Let's see. What else? Any questions so far? Anything you guys want to see?
I don't have a question, I guess, about making it per se, but about, I guess, sharing these once we make them. Because if I make one for a project, there might be another project that's really similar. So if we have any standards for making it or for sharing it. Yeah,
I mean, we could, if you make one, we can always put it on the server. We just kind of need like maybe just a naming convention, because right now it's just called Handrail on the server.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's something like we can do like based on the job or just the profile. I don't know, base shoe 1, base shoe 2. I don't know, but it's always a good idea to make it and then just put it on the server for the next project that we're not kind of looking for it and stealing it from another job.
Should we have the kind of standard of always making it in 2017 or whatever the oldest Revit version is that we're using?
Yeah, that's always good because, again, you can't downgrade. So 2017 is probably the best one right now because we can always upgrade to 2018 later on. So yeah, if you have one that you want to use for your project, make sure you use like 2017 if you have it.
So
2018.
Oh, sorry, Celine had her hand up.
Sorry,
Oh.
James. So my question is this current panel for Guardrail has takeoff purpose? That the family making for takeoff purpose? Any?
From what I know, it doesn't get taken off. you can still use that as an elevation. It still comes up in your Takeoff browser. So if I were to use the Takeoff browser, and I would find it, you can see that it still finds it, the guardrail elevation, and I can still like click on it and locate it. I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. No, I gotta refresh it. It can still find it, but I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't come in with the Takeoff data, right?
Yeah, that was actually my question that Celine just stole from me. But
You stole my question.
so the example that you showed us in the details, since it did have like extruded metal, I would think that would probably have to come in, you know, maybe from Esley's team to get data for that extruded metal, just so that we don't miss that somewhere. And then maybe just apply that extrusion using like a generic model over it with Takeoff data. Is that, do you kind of see that going that route with those?
It could. We probably have to ask Zach, because one thing I noticed with these, the way I have it set up, is it doesn't find. Well, there's no alias actually.
It's
what we could do
is panel, right? It's not really ammonium.
Yeah, what we could do if we needed to in that case is create kind of like a separate part, right? So say we made, instead of making this inside this, in this family like I did the extrusion, I can make it outside. So make it a generic model here and have like an alias, or what's called an alias. I'm not sure, this is kind of just what I'm thinking. And if we do that, then it actually gets picked up by the Takeoff program. So you can still kind of use this and not actually put a generic model there, but it's just an idea. I don't know, Steve, you have any input on that?
No.
No?
Gabriel?
Yes.
I have some, well, probably a little bit off this topic, because I noticed this training actually you'll focus on the basic typical section, what we're going to draw this one. But I'm thinking a little different, but it worth to exploring, maybe not this session, if we don't have enough time, maybe next time. You know, the guardrail, right now, what you draw, it's all glass guardrail, right? We do not have the support between the joint, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so building code like this one, they have two type of guardrail. One is we have glass one, or like a all metal guardrail, which is not our products. So we're not doing that one. But some guardrail has a metal support in the middle. And also they have a point support glass. I know that's not our stuff too. If it's a point support, we're gonna buy out the system, I'm pretty sure. But we have a case is this. You know, building code, it's like this on safety issues. When you don't have middle support, the glass has to be, first of all, you shouldn't put a line over here. That's offended building code, okay? So my point is, you should have a one, at least one single of the metal bar to carry 3 lights at the same time. That's a building code. And also, if you have a return, for example, balcony, if you have a smaller balcony, you don't have enough room to get 3 nuts over there. You don't have 2 or 1 or corner, a transition, or end of the bar, the jam condition. You always need a metal over there. So how are they going to draw with a metal vertical support post? You can talk the next section.
Yeah, I mean, we can do kind of anything within the family. So if we needed to show something, we can, like you were mentioning. But it's kind of like, do we need to show it?
Don't put this one. Don't put this one. Not every single location. Is there any way we can do that? Always keep 3. At least 3. Because this is actually controlled by whatever the profile section of it. It based on, sometimes you can carry 4 or 5 based on your stock length. But at least you
Yeah.
cannot break every location. That's not right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sorry, I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm just trying to point the things what I see. Because this is critical. It's a safety issue. If you draw it, people even know it. They mind if it's not there, they probably just fab like that. Chop, 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 chop. You're gonna have trouble.
No,
I
that's a
think
good
for
point.
those,
Yeah,
I
that
would
was my
probably-
question too.
Yeah, I'd probably just model it as like an all glass and then do the posts maybe like a generic model.
So
almost like
probably it's better you model another way, separate.
Mm-hmm.
Usually,
Yeah, we can do.
yeah, usually here's what I see. This is why the beauty of Amy's way to sales model, because her mindset is how you build the unit, how he model the unit. So here's the same thing. If you don't do one section, you just, okay, this is one glass, it's how I do it. Then top, it's another piece. I'm gonna make another piece, put on top.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah. So yeah, like James said, mentioned like you could probably use it without the cap in this case, and then make like a model, a generic model here that covers, you know, the 3 lights. That'd probably be a good way.
I mean, you could even use a curtain wall on top and just not put grid lines and host it just the rail top.
Just for the rail.
Yeah. It might be easier just because, I mean, you would be taking the curtain wall you already made, you just copy and paste it, change everything to be empty, you know, don't have any grid lines, and then host the rail. Yeah, I mean, you could have them overlap, because if the rail is hosted to the top, like at the right height, it
Mm-hmm.
like basically how we do for SRTs or whatever.
Yeah, I see that too.
Yeah, exactly.
And just take out these grid lines.
Mm.
And you would make it not the glazed family, but the empty.
Oops.
And then if you do need joints, you know, that are offset from the glass, you can just add in the grid lines for those joints.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put like a fake mullion in here, just to show. Something like that, but with the right cap.
And I mean, you can even do that for the shoe too. If it's a piece that's extruded by us, then they could
I'll put it in
get that in metal takeoff.
Yeah. Yep. There's a couple of things we could do. Good that you brought it up, because I wasn't really aware of, or didn't really think about the whole showing the cap over 3 of them. Okay.
Gabe, I had another question.
Sure.
So it was for the one at the corner. For that one, in order to make it mitered, would we have to create another family or like a duplicate of that same family? Because if we edit this one, then it would edit all of them.
Yes. So we'd have to make like a mitered version at the corners, to be able to get it to how you would want to show it in the drawing.
Okay.
Yeah, because
And I
like
think
this
at that
one.
level, we might not even need to get there because our detail would probably just show that. Kind of like how our curtain walls, you know, in our shop drawings, we don't, like sometimes they just show kind of squared off on the ends. But we would typically have a detail here anyways
Okay.
of that, because a lot of times, you know, your glass
Sorry.
is going to
Let me
be
go back.
like, so.
Yeah, exactly. So model-wise, you're kind of okay with it looking like this?
I mean, there are other things in our shop drawings that aren't really modeled exactly, and we do it that way just so that we can get, you know, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if we need to, we could make some parameters in the family to actually, you know, extend to the correct dimension. We just have to build it inside the family. And there was a question from Javier, can the handrail be modeled with a radius? We can make it segmented. It'd be the same way, kind of like we're doing it with the our regular curtain walls. You can make like a, didn't really do this, so I don't know how it's gonna work, but.
Yeah, straight, flat, and segmented might be the most typical one, but sometimes, you know, like the malls, the places where they have like just have a circular, and actually the glass is making a radius along with the metal, some conditions.
Oh, it's actually radius?
Yeah, I've seen it some places. Not that
I
I
think
get it all the time, but you know, that 10-20% that we don't prepare for.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that then. Like, it has to be radius because the way we're doing it here, since it's a curtain wall, it's going to be flat unless we make a special family. But you kind of do this case where it's segmented in between the joints.
Okay, we had the same situation on UCI. I put the right
Yes.
segment. Yeah.
Yep. Made it segmented like this.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm not going to really go into because it's a little bit more complicated, is where you have like kind of like, say for example, you had a guardrail or handrail, excuse me, going on like stairs, or it's like not on the same level. In that case, you can use what's called the railing. It's a lot to it. That's why it's kind of like a little bit more probably for another time. But if you needed to, you could use the railing. And let me go to the floor. What's the best way to show this? Let me actually just make a floor real quick. This is just an example. Let me go to my 3D view. So say it followed the floor line, and the floor line did something like this, where it went up like 2.6 or something, right? So you have like this slope. You could use the railing. The first floor. Railing, and then I can use my pick line, pick this line, and just finish. I'll go to my 3D view. So it still wants to be hosted to the first floor, but I would just say pick a host and take this, and you would follow that floor line. Then you would just have to change kind of the look of it. You don't have as many options as you do with this. You know, this you can easily kind of take grids and take them out. This one you'd have to go into, you know, the type and kind of play around with this. That's why it gets a little complicated, but if we need to, we can. There is a way to do it. An example of that would be in this project. So this is a project where we were bidding, and they had like this railing here. So they did it the same way I just showed you. They made the floor, they added the railing here, and then they just made a new type called glass panel full. So they kind of messed with some of these options here, You can see they added glass and then the cap at the top. So again, it's a little more complicated. That's kind of why we went with the curtain wall panel route as opposed to the railing. So if you want to take a look at it and play around with it, feel free to, but yeah, just keep in mind it's a little more involved. Yeah, you just remember you can't have this like going at an angle because Revit won't like it. Let's say I wanted to make this follow for some reason. I'm not gonna do that. Disregard that. Too much. All right. Any other questions? Anything I missed? What did I miss? We went over creating it into the project. We toggled the different options. We modified the actual family itself. Kind of went over segmented conditions, handrail, more advanced railing. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had. Anybody have any other questions? No? If not, I think that's it, guys. If you have any families you've made in 2017 or 2018, let me know. We can put on the server. We can kind of finalize the way we want to make the handrails and guardrails and kind of document that. That way everybody's doing it the same way. And yeah, go ahead and feel free to play around with it and let me know if you have any questions.
Then Gabe, if you add the new family to the server, can you also send it to me so then I can add the view to the detail catalog so Drafter doesn't have to open every single family?
Yeah, we can make family for that too.
Great, thank you.
Also, I mean, would say if you're making a family, a model family, maybe try and make a detailed family that could go with it. That could also be shared with you, Rico, for the detail library.
Yeah, so I can add to the catalog so Drafter doesn't have to dig in every single one. Yeah.
That's a good point. All right, guys, that's all I got. You don't have any questions, then have a good 3-day weekend.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.